We're excited to have Joe with us. Joe Nygaard Owens is a PCUSA Presbyterian Church minister and the founder of Vibrant Church Communications, where she creates resources to help ministry be both vibrant and easy. Things like this super cool Prayer Labyrinth sticker. It's one of my favorite things. Joe lives in Cleveland, Ohio, so not too far away from us, with her husband and 2 kids, and she's passionate about seeing the holy in all moments and the divine spark ignite in children and youth. So, Joe, I'm so excited to have you here with us, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, I'll just say a little bit more introduction. So I have served in churches as both a pastor. Well, I've served as youth director before being ordained, as an associate pastor since being ordained, and also as a church communicator. My husband is an Episcopal priest, and we found that 2 kids and 2 ministers is just too much sometimes. So there are times when I take a step back from serving in the church, and that's where the church communications has come in handy. So I like to pull all of my different sides together, the pastor side, the communicator side, and the graphic design side together into my business, Vibrant Church Communications. So I'm excited to talk to you all about communication and children's ministry. So hopefully you'll find something helpful in our time today. All right, so we're going to go to the dreaded PowerPoint. Here we go. All right, communication, children's ministry. We covered that one. So Kathy did just start us in prayer, but I want to share with you. So one of the other things that I do is I work with an organization called Second Breath. It's based out of North Carolina, but they do reach all across the country, and their motto is great outer work comes from great inner work. So they have a course called The Inward Journey, where you're learning about spirituality and the Christian wisdom tradition. And so this comes to us from the Christian wisdom tradition. And it's just a time to take 3 deep breaths and center our heads, our hearts, and our bodies. So in just a second, I'll lead us through it. But on the inhale, so on each breath, first one, we'll think about our heads and quieting our mind. So when I take that breath, I'm just thinking quiet mind and trying to let go of all of the thoughts that are racing around. On the second breath, we focus on our hearts, and you can even touch your head, your heart, I usually go for my pelvis area. So head, quiet mind. When I touch my heart, I like to think about just a warmth emanating from my heart. So that activating your compassionate heart. And then when we go to the body, think about being grounded and receiving energy from the earth, from all of God's creation. And this just helps us to stay connected and be fully present. So let us take our 3 deep breaths. On your inhale, quiet your mind. On your next breath, open your heart. And on your last breath, feel your body becoming grounded. Amen. And that is something you can do while rushing to and from events. Anytime you start to feel yourself where your head is literally 2 feet in front of your body because you're thinking about all the things that have to get done, this is a way just to bring you back into yourself and become centered. All right, so I want to talk to you about 3 types of communication. So I like to put the different types of communication that we do into these 3 buckets. It's not saying that this is everything, because it may not be, but these are just the 3 buckets that I think about when I'm doing communication. Oh dear. And of course, now my PowerPoint is not working. So there we go. I was just not on the right screen. All right. So the first is information. And often when we think about communication, this is what we think about. These are your weekly emails. These are come to this event. These are all the things you're trying to get people to do and bring and show up to. And we're constantly pushing this information at people. The second type is connection. So this is often, we think about, this is where we want, like social media. We go to social media for connection. And we'll talk more about this. I don't want to say everything now. And then the third type is formation, that our communications can actually include formation because we're educators. This is what we do. We want to teach people all the time, everywhere. So we're going to dive into these a little bit more. All right, information. So it's the email, it's the text messages, it's the flyers you send home, it's the printed newsletter. This is kind of our most standard form. It's the website, all of these things. So I challenge you in your information to be as concise as possible. We are all on information overload. The number of emails we get now has just skyrocketed. By the time you are done in this 45 minutes, you're going to have a dozen new emails at least. So we don't want to waste people's time. But also remember that the information that you're sending out might be different from what the church is sending out. So you want to communicate it in as clear and crisp a way so that people are taking in your information, because let's face it, they're going to read yours over the church's. Let's see here. So let's talk about this weekly email. Because this is your number one way to communicate with people, no matter, and I've seen this again and again and again. I follow a lot of different business and church related communication things, or, blogs and emails and all of that. And again, I still see email is the number one way to communicate and connect with your audience. So I encourage you to send an almost weekly email, because let's face it, we can't do it every single week. And there are some weeks it's okay to just skip. Nobody's going to have a heart attack if you miss a week, but being as regular as you can, having a day that you send it out so that even if people aren't fully aware that it's coming, they sort of intuitively know, oh, it's Wednesday, so I'm going to get my email. So I encourage you to do almost weekly. To curate information. So along with sending whatever is going on in your email, or in your ministry, not your email, I want you to think about what is going on in the life of the church. Because, so what I found is in smaller churches, families are more likely to read the church-wide email. In larger churches, they are less likely to read the church-wide email. And I confess, I'm in maybe a medium-sized church, and there's a weekly email sent out from the church, and it's 800 pages long. It often gets to the point where click here to read the rest of the email, and that's just too long. I don't have the energy to read this email. But whenever our children and youth director sends out an email, I click on it right away because I know there's going to be good and helpful information. So take what information from the large church email that you can and put it into yours so that people really can stay aware of it, because they will get that information from you rather than from the big church. So provide value. Again, we don't want to waste people's time because they will stop reading your emails. But if they know, one, that the information is going to be communicated very clearly. So having, the day, the date, the time, any other of that key information right at the beginning. Don't make them hunt. That needs to be all in that first sentence, or even I like to do a header with the title, and then right underneath is that key information, so they can say February 21st, I'm busy that night, skip. Or February 21st, I think I can do that. Let me keep reading. So, and then a general rule of thumb, this is for bulletins, but I think it works for emails too. 75 words or less. That is the length of your announcement. Whether you're writing for, that's for sure true for a bulletin announcement, but if you're writing for an email too, I would, if you can truncate it even more, because sometimes that 75 words includes Tuesday, February 21st at 5 p.m. So don't waste people's time, provide value. They know they're going to get the information in a way that's easy to read and act upon. And then one thing that I like to do when I was serving last year, I served as children and youth coordinator at my husband's church while they were in transition. And I didn't do it every week, but maybe 2 weeks out of a month, I would write some sort of reflection. And I like to ask myself, what do my people need to hear this week? What is going on in the world? What is going on in the church? And sometimes it's really like, what is going on in my life? And what would I want to hear this week if somebody was writing it to me? But really kind of putting yourself in the shoes of your parents. What do they need? Do they need a pep talk? Do they need to be reminded that just holding it together right now, you're doing great? That gets an A+. Do they need to be reminded that every Friday night when you have popcorn on the couch and watching a movie, that is a holy ritual? That's a great thing to remind them. I wrote that in one email because that's what my family does. Every Friday night, we get popcorn and we Zoom with my parents who are in North Carolina. We're in Ohio. And this is a holy moment. They know that on the couch, Friday night at 7:00 with popcorn, that is sacred space. So, because we're connecting. And what sort of reminders? How can you pull, and this is, what Kathy said in the introduction, how can you pull the holy out of the everyday? That telling parents, and it's this positive reinforcement that, we all know about, telling parents, you're doing a good job. You've got the right stuff. And then here's this one super easy way that you can take it one step further. Because once they know that they're already doing it, they're like, oh, well, if I'm already doing it, then I can do one more thing. So how do you kind of snowball on that? So it's this providing value, and that's going to encourage them to open up the emails. And some weeks, you write, hey, I don't have anything to say, but I'm thinking of you. You're in my prayers. I love you. You're doing a great job. So whatever it is, and it switch it up, but make sure you're giving them something. All right. Oh, use an email provider. Now, I had this question, I was at APSI last week with Kathy and I did a workshop and we were talking about some communication things. And I said, use an email provider like Constant Contact or MailChimp or whatever your church uses. And I had someone say, I have 7 people on my list and I just email them and I know they're reading it. And I was like, you're fine. There are some positives to using an email provider like MailChimp or Constant Contact, but in that situation, if you know your people are reading it, it's okay. So the reasons to use Constant Contact, MailChimp, any of those, it actually will save you time. It'll take some time to set it up if it's not set up already, but it will save you time, because my favorite thing to do is duplicate the previous week's email. And then you take out what's not needed and add in what is. You can do some good formatting that you might not be able to do, so that you can bold, have these lists of events at the bottom. But my favorite thing is you can see who opens it. That's a really, really nice thing, because if someone says, I don't know what's going on, because how many times have we heard that, even though we've communicated in all the ways, you can go back and check in and say, oh, I noticed you're not opening my emails. Are you getting them? And then it's kind of on them. Well, yeah, I just don't open them. Okay, well, why don't we try opening? Or they might not be getting, it might be going to a spam filter. So you can say, hey, let's figure this out. So you can see who's opening them. And then you can create your lists and make it easy to email certain groups and all of that. So I really do recommend using an email provider. All right. I think that's all there. So connection. All right, this is slightly more fun. Information communication is necessary, and it ends up taking a good bit of time, but connection is where it gets fun. So this is our social media. Text messages, again, like if you have a reminder, things like that, snail mail, handouts, all sorts of things. I can't say enough about sending physical mail, especially, so you're going to send, if you have an event coming up, you're going to send a flyer or a postcard, something like that. But when you are paying attention, so for example, my oldest child, who's 13, won an art award. And we, of course, told our youth minister, and he was super excited for them. And then the next week, they got a card in the mail from him, just reinforcing how excited he was for them, and just saying, congratulations. I mean, it doesn't take long. You just need a sentence or two, but writing mail, having these points of connection. If you're not sending birthday cards, that's another great means of connection. And you can put anything flat into your card. So some suggestions. I actually did a question in a Facebook group about this, like, what do you put on your birthday cards? And so people said everything from like jelly bracelets and confetti and balloons and pop rocks, stickers. I mean, all sorts of stuff. So anything flat can go in your birthday cards. And it's just a fun little, another point of connection, because it's these points of connection that get people to keep coming back. That's what draws people in. It's not the information that gets them there. It's the connection that gets them there. So the connection happens with you as an individual. It happens with the institution of the church, and it happens with each other. So on social media, I mean, you're in kids ministry, you're going to have parents on there. So it's a chance for parents to connect with each other and we're going to go through a whole example of what we can do with this. So social media, so this sounds silly, but having silly questions will often get people to talk, to answer, bonus points. I mean, you can just have it about anything, but bonus points of like, how can you get it to tie into something you're doing? And we're going to go through that at the end, but you can put up, who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl? And have a poll or, something like that. Let's see what we have. Okay, so I have a question from Leslie about how do you feel about CCB, Church Community Builder, as an email provider? I actually don't know about them. I would be happy to research that and let you know. But if they have, I don't know enough about that. So let me make. There are a lot of church related platforms that have arisen. And I just don't know all of them. And we will have some time for questions at the end too. So if I'm not covering something, definitely you can ask it. Let's see here. All right. So formation, because we are educators and we are always teaching, and anything can become a teaching moment. So yes. So you can do this in pretty much any channel. You can do it in your email. You can do it in a text message. You can do it on social media. You can do it on your website. But really think through how you're doing it. We don't want to come across as like overly like, you should know all this stuff. Make it fun. Don't overdo it. Make it snippets. With digital communication, long form text, they might read the first sentence if you're lucky, but really think about breaking it up into very short chunks. A lot of emails that I get, so I think like 80% of people skim. That is, and if they see something that catches them, they might read a little bit more. But even that, you have to be really intentional about how you're writing it out. So I would say no more than like 3 sentences in a paragraph. Bold one of them to draw on some attention. So use your formatting to constantly be drawing people's attention through what you're teaching. And especially in formation, because I think this is where we can get really lengthy. So thinking about how we talk is also important. Bullet points, all of that. So again, we talked about this in your almost weekly email, but that message is a great time for formation. You know, what is a small ritual that they could do this weekend? What is a Bible verse that might be important? You know, just thinking about very small ways. Part of what I do in Vibrant Church Communications, kind of my niche, is bite size. There's a lot of really great long form content and I love it and I use it at times. And then other times I just want, what can I do in 5 minutes? Kind of like the 3 deep breaths. What can I do that provides that point of contact, connection with God, connection with each other, connection with scripture? How do we incorporate that into just a regular rhythm? All right. So I don't know, do Methodist churches do pancake dinners before Ash Wednesday? I don't know. I can't see everybody's faces. So there's some thumbs up. All right. So my husband's an Episcopal priest. In the Presbyterian Church, we don't necessarily do these pancake dinners, but he does. So it's in my mind as something that's coming up. So let's take a look at a pancake dinner and how we can communicate about it. All right. So our information is that it's going to be Tuesday, February 21st at 5 p.m. in the fellowship hall. So that's how, we want to communicate that line of information. And then underneath you can say, oh, come and we'll have prizes and blah, blah, blah. Gluten-free pancakes are included, that sort of thing. So we have our information. That's how we typically think about communicating that there's a pancake dinner. But, connection. All right, so let's create an engagement social media post. What's your favorite type of pancake? And it's great, especially if you're just starting out getting engagement posts. Talk to someone who's pretty active on social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, wherever your people are, and be like, hey, can you answer this one for me? Get the ball rolling. It is totally okay to do that, to seed your answers. Because once one person is brave enough to go, then other people will be like, oh, I love sweet potato pancakes and I love blueberry pancakes and, whatever it is. So, I mean, it's silly, but people can start having conversation like, oh, my grandmother used to always make these oatmeal pancakes with buttermilk. And then my mom started making them and now I make them for my kids. True story in my house. So, it could be anything like that. You never know what's going to come. And then our formation is, why do we have a pancake dinner? And you get to talk about the origins of Lent and taking out all the sugar and, all of that stuff. So it's a pancake dinner. We think about saying it's Tuesday, February 21st at 5 p.m. in the fellowship hall, but you can get so much more out of it than just that one kind of blurb.